Hey guys, Mary Hamer here, and today we're going to be talking about light, heavy, light. So this is a topic that I found on a Robcast by Pastor Rob Bell. If you're not religious, don't worry, this is not either. And it was Robcast 22, and it was also called Light, Heavy, Light. So in the podcast, Pastor Rob Bell talked about how Bishop Tutu and the Dalai Lama greeted each other. And they didn't do so with just, nods and reverence or anything like that. They actually embraced one another and then tickled each other and giggled. And why this is significant is just because, there are some people who have seen some of the world's terriblest sorrows, and they still have this lightness about them. Instead of the weight of the world, they were conveying joy and happiness, a lightness, exuding joy and connection and childlike wonder. You see, because there's two types of lightness, and I didn't realize this at first. There's level 1 lightness, and this lightness is achieved through denial of all of the things that are heavy and dark about the world. Ignoring darkness, ignoring suffering. It's a mindless kind of lightness without much thought. Rob Bell connects this to pop music, where you always have those number one hits talking about things like, going out and partying and, throwing your hands up and all this stuff. People in the light refuse to acknowledge how deep and dark the world really is. And then there's heaviness. Heaviness is when we do acknowledge how dark and broken the world is, that we're all going to die, that there's evil in the world, and that the innocent suffer, that our deepest, darkest fears may come true. It's acknowledging hunger in the world and atrocities that happen every day. Someone in heaviness paints with dark colors, has more depth inside of these paintings that they paint of the world. It's just very different than the very bright and happy people kind of paintings that level 1 lightness portray, that are very surfacey. There's just an acceptance of how the world is that level 1 lightness doesn't understand. This heaviness says to level 1 lightness, you don't understand. You've made up this world that you think is real, but it isn't. Heaviness is darkness and sorrowful. It's anger, and it's sticky black tar that's enticing, but can suck you in. And then you have level 2 lightness. This is very different than level 1. Level 2 lightness is when you've been to the edge of the abyss. You've stared darkness in the face, embraced it, and walked through it. When they say that life is good, they're not saying it out of some sort of denial of what life really is. They're saying it because they've walked through the darkness and they have seen the other side. What I realized at this point was that when I was in my heady days of Goth-dom, a lot of me was there because, I like the fashion, I still do, I like the music still. But a lot of me was there because all I was seeing, for the most part, or all I was recognizing, was this level 1 lightness, this denial, and this pushing away of what life partially is, and that's that darkness. I was the enlightened one that could see past all the fakeness of the world and of the fakeness of all these people to see how the world really is. I was stuck in my own heaviness, not just in my depression, but also in a gift that had been bestowed on me, that I could see the world for how it was. But as I grew and emerged and walked through darkness and started to see something on the other side that looked familiar, like the level 1 lightness, but different somehow, more real, I started to find hope. And with this hope, emerged colors. Colors that I started seeing everywhere. Colors that I no longer minded. Colors that I started wearing on my own body. But part of me was worried that I had slipped into this level 1 lightness, that I was no longer enlightened, that I was rejecting darkness, even though I knew it existed and it was there. I didn't fully realize until this podcast that I listened to that level 2 lightness was a thing. But you see, in places where this level 1 fake lightness is everywhere, heaviness tends to be pushed down and oppressed. Areas with an abundance of shopping malls and plastic surgery and bright colors and pop music tend to be the places where you find a lot of people rejecting that and finding the heaviness that exists in the world, and picking up that mantle and running with it, putting it on their bodies, putting it on their skin, putting it in their music, because they know that it's a thing, and they see that people around them are rejecting it. It's as if they say, if you're not going to acknowledge the darkness in this world, then I am. We are fleeting beings in a terrible world, hanging by a thread. It's as if the world seeks balance, even in the heart of its people. So, how do you get from heavy to level 2 lightness? Number 1, identify the heaviness. Identify all of your deepest, darkest fears, wishes, and desires. People can get stuck in heaviness because they dwell and not walk. You have to walk into the darkness and walk through it to get to the other side. Number 2, get personal with heaviness. You have to say, okay, I have this fear, but why am I afraid of this fear? What fear is behind the fear that I feel? You may be afraid of losing your job. Okay, why? Because you're afraid of losing the income. Okay, why? Because you're afraid of not being able to provide for your family. You're afraid that you might be kicked out on the street. You may even be afraid that you're going to die. And so that fear that is, I may lose my job, is actually, I might die. And that's where you have to put your efforts. Number 3, embrace the heavy darkness. You have to accept that, yes, it might happen. Stay with that feeling. Go into it. Stick with it. You have to push through it enough, and you'll get to the other side. You have to accept that the bad thing may happen. Number 4, be here, be aware, be present. You have to remind yourself that you're here, that the bad thing or the good thing may happen, but that's in the future, and you're here now. Here and now, you are here and now. You're afraid that if you quit your job and go after your dreams, that you'll go belly up? Yeah, that's a thing that might happen. You may leap, and the net may not catch you. No matter what you decide, if you find your fears and embrace them, you'll find that ultimately they don't matter as much as this moment matters. Number 5, let go. Rob Bell says that the problem with heaviness is that it clings to things and it becomes addicted to outcomes. The issue with heaviness is that it often comes when we deny our lack of control. We try to control things so much that we cling to them and we hold them tightly, and that we lose all joy and happiness in this moment. The truth is that you are here and now, and you get to do things. And the future is uncertain, whether you play it safe or not. So find your fears, walk through them, know that they are a possibility, but hold on to them very loosely. Know that you are here now. Whether that means that you need to start a meditation practice to remind yourself of that, or to try to just become more mindful in each moment, focusing on what you're doing. Know that no matter what stage you're in, if you're in that level 1 lightness, or if you're in heaviness. You can walk through. You can confront fears, confront things that are bad and negative about the world. And you can come to the conclusion that after all of this, even with the terrible things that happen, life is good.